Okay, good morning. It's a beautiful day outside, so we're outside instead of being inside. This is our second Wednesday night, and we've done 2 Sunday mornings, and all of those have been inside. It's just beautiful, and plus, I needed to be outside a little bit for a reason today because it has to do with our passage that we're going to look at in the Old Testament. So, a couple quick thoughts for you on this Wednesday night. First of all, have you ever had a drip in your house from a rainstorm and there's a hole in the roof or whatever, and somehow the water gets down and is dripping through the tile roof, the ceiling, and is getting into the carpet, and you've gone to put a bucket underneath it to collect the drips? Well, that happened not too long ago here in our parlor. And one morning I walk in and Kyler probably, but someone has posted, I put a bucket underneath the drip to collect the water so it doesn't pool up on the carpet. And I've done that before with a drip and thought to myself, well, I'll just come back the next day and I will empty the bucket. Maybe we can get it fixed by then. But then I come back the next day and I find myself sort of surprised about how much water's in the bucket. Those little singular drips, 1 a minute, 2 a minute, over time, during the period of time that I've been gone overnight, have sometimes seemed to almost be at the brim of the bucket, or even maybe overflowing onto the carpet, because those singular drops add up over time. So that made me think about these sort of seemingly insignificant individual actions that we do, that we tend to blow off or think aren't important. Let me give you another example. When it's an election season, you might hear someone say, or you might have said to yourself, well, I'm one person, there are millions of people voting, so what can my one vote do in this big election picture? So that might have encouraged someone to say, well, I'm not even going to go stand in line. It's just my one little vote. But the importance of those singular actions do add up. So what I want you to sort of visualize is that everyone has a bucket, and everyone has a bucket, let's say, of hope for our purposes today. And all of our individual drops in those buckets add up over time. And we think, well, it won't make that much of a difference. But collectively, if we take care of each other, and we watch out for each other, and we think about others in a way that makes us see that they have their own bucket of hope, like we have our own bucket of hope, then maybe we can focus more on those individual acts of kindness, of mercy, of compassion, which over time fill up the buckets. Galatians chapter 6 tells us, don't let yourself ever get tired of doing good. And then I saw a verse in Proverbs chapter 17, it's verse 17, that I thought was a little apropos for now. It says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother or sister is born for times of adversity. You remember our sign in the AFC Center? One of them says, don't let people slip away, take care of your people. So text, call, see if you can reach out, keep the connection strong. And remember, one of the best things that you can do to keep the connection strong is to mention people by name in prayer. Last night, talking about connection, Hayden, Leslie, and I visited 33 houses or apartments where AFC students are still here in town. There's some coming and going, and some people are coming back for periods of time. I think Easter's coming pretty soon, in a couple weeks, and people are maybe headed home for Easter. And we love stopping by. We're seeing people mostly less than a minute, but man, just the physical, hearing the voice, seeing a face is tremendous. It makes me think about how awesome the reunion is going to be when we can all collectively get together. I've actually found myself emotional a little bit a couple times when at different little, maybe even a commercial or a story that I read or seeing a face. It was so good last night. We'd love to bring you something. We're trying to do it each week. That's the goal. So if you're in town, let Hayden or me know. And if we're not stopping by, it's only because we don't know you're here and we don't have your address. Remember, fill those buckets. So at the end of the first Sunday morning, I mentioned a blue jay, sort of offhand, casually. Then the next week we talked about a mockingbird, and the next time we talked about a black vulture. And it's sort of lighthearted, yeah, a little silly in some ways, but in actuality, there's a seriousness behind it for me. Let me sort of tell you where that comes from. So far we've talked all about birds. When Leslie and I were young marrieds, we didn't have any kids. We lived over on Verde, which is close to 2818, and Harvey Mitchell, I think is what it's most often called now, in Bryan. And I got on this kick where I was going to learn Texas wildflowers. I bought a book. I'd walk out in the fields and look at wildflowers, write down the wildflowers that I saw. And that was just sort of it wasn't a long period of time, but I've always had this sort of interest in nature. I love acorns, trees, national parks. My favorite places to visit, almost always the top 10 are going to be probably 10 national parks. But this idea that creation shows us that God is truly still supreme is important. So during periods of questioning or crisis, long before the coronavirus and long after the coronavirus, there'll be a need for us to realize that the supreme authority lies with the Creator who made all that surrounds us. So I'm going to read a few verses out of Job 38. Remember Job? He's lost everything. He's questioning God. And then God sort of gets a little testy with him a little bit because he wants him to realize that regardless of the circumstances, and Job's were pretty dire, he still rules the earth. Here are the verses, Job 38. Just a sampling. I've picked a few out. And this is him referring to creation and what he's done, and questions Job and says, this is what I've done. This is who I am. I've done this. Listen to me because I have all authority on all the created beings and all the created earth. He says, where does the light come from and where does darkness go? Can you take each to its home, and do you know how to get there? Where is the path to the source of the light? Where is the home of the east wind? Who makes the rain fall on barren land in a desert where no one lives? And who sends rain to satisfy the parched ground and make the tender grass spring up? Can you direct the movement of the stars, binding the cluster of the Pleiades, a group of stars in the sky that you can see on really, really dark nights, or loosen the cords of Orion, the constellation that's a winter constellation for us? So this is just a sampling. Another one. Have you made daylight spread to the ends of the earth to bring an end to the night's darkness? God, in several passages, uses his creative power to remind his people that he's in charge. And so when you see and look around you, God's creative power screams his supreme reign, his supreme authority, and that he's still in control. So I wanted to show you this as a reminder when you're driving around. They're everywhere. This is a pink evening primrose. Now, it's pretty prolific, April to June, scattered along the highways. They're all around. This one was right outside the church office door. They usually come in sort of big patches. A couple things about this, about God's creative power. So this is a pink evening primrose. In some portions of Texas, the northern regions of Texas, this flower closes during the day but opens at night, pink evening primrose. So it opens up at night. In our area, southern portion of Texas, it really opens up during the day and closes at night, sort of the opposite. But it does that each day. Opens and closes, and in some places it actually loses its flowers and grows other ones overnight, almost to the extent that you can actually see the petals open up if you just that quickly. It's pretty remarkable flower. But most of the time it just closes up really, really fine. You can't really see, but almost to just a stem. And then it opens up again in the evening or the day, pink evening primrose. Another little tip, this actually is edible. You can put it in salads. Now, I've not done it, probably not, a source of protein, but this is what God's created. This is all along the road. There's tons of them. And this is actually just a little bit of a still example that everything that you see that's created, that being, you might even can see, may not can see the wind, but the wind, the plants, the moon, the sun, the stars still chant, scream, proclaim the one who is ultimately still in charge of the universe. Your pink evening primrose. And remember, check on your people. Put drips, seem insignificant. Just keep dropping those little droplets of kindness and goodness and mercy in the buckets of your people. See you Sunday.